So if you want to see how I went from this to this, here we go. If you're someone who has struggled with finding your unique voice and style and tone in your photography, specifically editing, I think this video could help you. This little workflow or these tips and techniques certainly has helped me recently, specifically with landscape photography, wildlife photography, sports photography, some stuff I do for, self-interest, passion, and some stuff I do for work to get paid. So this is going to be specific to landscape photography based on photos that I took on a recent road trip, hiking trip, photography trip to Ireland. I made a whole video about it. Go check it out. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. So like I said, jumping right into it. Here's the image. This is Ballynahinch Castle. First thing I'm going to do to an image like this is, because we have clouds, is let's just see what these adaptive skies do. I'm going to pick storm clouds. I love how it says an AI process is running. It's like, no, it's not. That's the adaptive sky has been around, and you just started calling it an AI process because everybody's scrambling to call everything AI. It's just software. Like, just relax. It's a whole nother rant. Okay, so storm clouds, that looks good. I'm going to leave it as is, nothing too dramatic. Then what I'm going to do in my masks is to duplicate and invert and then do everything else, because I think obviously a mistake, a lot of people know this, but a mistake a lot of beginners make is to just do global edits. And we are going to do some global edits as well, but you want to isolate certain things that you want your eye to be drawn to, obviously. A million other videos on this. So now I'm just going to bring back a little bit of the whites. Maybe let's call it 23 is fine, and maybe some highlights. We'll say like 30. It's good for now. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to create another mask and detecting landscape features. It's usually pretty good with this. I feel like this is a pretty cut and dry image, good composition where it should be able to pull out each individual landscape feature. In this case, I want to grab the architecture. Yeah, see, it does a great job. So we got that. And all I want to do is just maybe a tiny bit of contrast. And then let's just even introduce some more whites. Let's call it like 28. Perfect. It's not much, it's subtle. And let's do one more landscape feature. Let's grab some water. Boom. And let's just add some blues to that. So I like to start with -10. That looks pretty good. Got some more blues here, but we're not done yet. I'm gonna grab a brush and I'm gonna subtract the mountain from it, because I still want, when we pump some oranges and other hues into the whole image, I still want this to be orange. So I want the reflection of the mountain to reflect the mountain, how the mountain looks too. That's not in the water. So I'm gonna call that good with the masks for now. And this is where I am gonna start, as I mentioned, doing global edits. So let's start with exposure. Let's say like 0.28. It's like I pick random numbers when I do this. I'm gonna call that good. Contrast, definitely want to add some, get it out of that like log looking image. Highlights, we're gonna do 6.7 -6.7. It's pretty good. Shadows, we're gonna pump up quite a bit. Get some detail in here in the pine trees. Again, like the human eye is great at seeing, dynamic range. So that doesn't bother me. Pumping those shadows up, bringing the highlights down, all the things to kind of like balance out the image. I don't want it to be like an average middle gray, but I think this balances it out nicely. Whites, let's just do nice lucky number 12. Blacks, let's take these down a bit. And we're gonna touch more on blacks in a minute. Dehaze, let's say 11. I like the number 11. Vibrance, I usually start with 15. That feels good. And then to start with an image like this, that's like, I don't want to call it washed out, but a landscape like this that does feel super log, I'll just double the vibrance in the saturation. And then sometimes I'll just do saturation. It kind of depends on the light, the angle of the light. Every image, every photo requires something different. Then what I do here usually next is, after I've made those adjustments, I'll just hover the mouse over, most people probably know this trick, to see, are highlights clipping or whites clipping? Are any shadows just blacks crushed? So we do have a lot that's showing up in blue there. And then if I do the inverse, there you see what's kind of too hot. But honestly, in this case, I don't care. It's like the awning of this castle that's in the distance. It's the blacks I care about. So I'm just gonna do a couple anchor points on the tone curve and just bring up the very bottom of that ever so slightly. Subtlety, the beauty and subtlety. Now we come to our mixer, and we're going to start with our yellows, because I want to take these yellows yeah, down towards like orange, almost like reddish. So I'm gonna call that good for now. Saturation, this is where I'm gonna pump up orange because the, you know, the weeds, the banks here at the base of the green kind of reeds in the creek or the river, whatever you wanna call it, the mountain, the castle itself. So I'd probably say like 45, let's 46, one extra, never hurt anyone. That looks pretty good. And then luminance, I wanna bring these greens up just because pine trees and again, these reeds down here. So I think that looks pretty good. One thing I'm gonna do to combat that, and obviously you can grab the little icon here, grab that, and you know, kind of drag that way. Obviously we're in the luminance now, but you can do the same thing for saturation, same thing for hue. But I usually just kind of will grab the sliders or like enter a number and see where that gets me started. But I'm gonna pump a little bit of blue, just a tiny bit, into the midtones. I'm gonna call that good. One thing I've been doing, or not doing, depending on how you look at it, is not touching the sharpness slider at all. I mean, you can see, like if you wanna go, you know, hold option or whatever, you can kind of just negate it globally sharpening everything, but its default is 40. I just leave it there. I've noticed zero difference when I sharpen, when I mask my sharpening, whether I'm printing something or if I'm just posting on social media or even like putting it on my website. I don't notice a difference anymore. I think we're all pixel peeping and we don't need to. So I just leave that as is. Do a little remove chromatic aberration, and that's it. Moving on to the next one. So this edit is going to be very similar to the last one, where I'm going to actually start with storm clouds right away. We do have some blues. We're going to start there, and then same thing as last time. I am going to duplicate and invert that mask. Probably just going to pump some highlights up. Again, I always pick random numbers. Let's start with 48. So now we're going to do the same thing we did last time. I'm going to grab my landscape features. Should be pretty good. Super straightforward image. You got mountains, you got trees, grass, foreground, water. And by the way, you got to be super diplomatic about how you shoot, because depending on where you are, you'll hit these power lines, or you can, and I'll zoom in a second, see the power lines that cut right across the middle of the island. So I'm gonna do the same thing as last time though. Moving back to the water, just do a -10, put some blues in there, nothing fancy. Now we are back to our global edit process where it's gonna be, again, very similar to the last one. Sometimes I'll even like copy paste if I feel like the light's similar, the scene is somewhat similar, just like copy paste from another photo and see like as a good starting point if it works. So it's gonna seem very redundant, but yeah, it's not the same. 15 is usually my starting point for contrast though. 6, 7, and then highlights, yeah, -67. I think shadows, we were going up again. Same thing, I want it to be reflective of the actual scene. I actually do think this is like almost identical to the last one. -16 on the blacks. And then I think we're just gonna do dehaze 11, probably 15 to start at vibrance. And you know what, just for fun, let's just go slightly less on the saturation. Call that good at 28. Yeah, we'll call that good. So same thing, I usually grab this. We do have some blues. Nothing, you got one little spot clipping here. Doesn't bother me like that much, like one little spot. If you wanted to, you can come back here and do your option. Hold that down on whites and you could just pull that back if you wanted to, boom. But I like the whites there. I mean, I'm gonna leave it for now. It doesn't bother me. It's not, you know, nobody's looking for detail in this tiny little minuscule patch of sky. Tone curve, again, couple anchor points here. Just bring this up ever so slightly. That's probably even too much. And then that should get us, yeah, perfect. For the mixer though, I kind of just like these colors and what it is doing right now as is. I don't want to get too complicated and too cute and try to like do, you know, aesthetic gymnastics here to make this kind of appear as something it's not. Again, true to life. I feel like this was very representative of what I saw that night. So I'm gonna leave that. Probably do in the midtones, maybe just a little bit of blue. Again, I usually do that just to see what it does. It's probably a little too teal. We'll call that good. And then maybe for fun, we'll do kind of a little balance because it was nearing sunset. So I can do some oranges into the shadows, call that good. Now for this one, I know I'm gonna do, again, no sharpening, none needed. Sony a7R5, image is sharp enough, 61 megapixels, 60, 61, whatever it is. For here, I'm gonna do a vignette, but before I do that, I don't usually do this. I'm kind of, I wanna only crop if absolutely necessary, maybe to straighten a horizon line. I'd rather just get my compositions right. But for this image, this was shot at 35 millimeters. I'm gonna cheat a little bit and crop, but I'm gonna crop to make it appear. It's kind of like a faux panoramic, and I'm fine with that. I just won't tell anyone. So for this, it's probably gonna be, I can try it 16 by 9, which I think is gonna be, yeah, I think I wanna even go less, like really exaggerate the panoramic, because 16 by 9, 16 by 10, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna just unlock the aspect here, and this is where we get into cutting off those wires. I don't want them in the picture because I did mention this earlier, and I'm also cutting off these kind of the reeds, the weeds, the high grass here in the foreground. I did mention this earlier, that you can see the lines cutting across Pine Island. I'm leaving them. I said this in my other video breakdown about capturing the photography in Ireland. I'm not doing those mental, aesthetic visual gymnastics to make the scene unrepresentative of what it is. The lines are there. Do I want them to not be there? Sure, but they're there. It doesn't bother me. Nobody's pixel peeping but you. Nobody cares. Just move on. So that's pretty good. I'm gonna call that good, but now I just wanted to go back to that vignette, and it's gonna be very subtle. Call it like a -8. And I'm just gonna grab that midpoint. Obviously, you know what the midpoint does. You have it here, it's just doing that. So yeah, there's your midpoint. And boom. So the last image we're gonna look at is probably my favorite. Who am I kidding? They're all my favorite. I love them all. I'm not being like, I love my stuff, but like I'm proud of what I captured for my first time really practicing true landscape photography. But first thing I'm gonna do for this image is I'm actually gonna come into the crop first. I know that, where my tripod was set up, it was like on a hill. And even though you get it level and you look at it and it looks good, I knew it was gonna be off. So you can do this one of two ways. You can eyeball it, or you can just grab the angle icon and I go against the horizon. We'll call that good. I also know that I'm going to do a 16 by 10 composition. I really like that. And I think I'm gonna just align that horizon with that lower third. So we'll call that good. First thing I'm gonna do, similar to the other ones, and this is where we're gonna get into that kind of, I don't wanna call it a trick, but a new technique that I'm incorporating specifically in the color realm to my photos, landscape photos and others. Storm clouds, let's take a look at this first. Process. No, it's not. It's not an AI process. Yeah, that's a good starting point. And we are going to next grab a reverse. No, I don't think I need to for this. Yeah, I think I am going to do that. But I think for the reverse storm cloud, for the duplicate and invert, I'm actually just going to add a little bit of texture. And the reason I'm doing that is because let's call 15 good. That might even be a lot. But the reason I'm doing that is because this was at, settings, ISO 100, 25 millimeters, f22, 2.5 second exposure. f22, again, it's the Sony a7R5. It's sharp, but it's at f22, not gonna be as sharp as like a 2.8, 4.5, or maybe it's comparable to the 2.8, but that's why I just added a little bit of texture. Nothing great, nothing crazy, but it'll work. Next, I'm going to do one more mask, and what I'm gonna do is a radial gradient, and I'm gonna bring this up here, but I'm just gonna take that middle, like that, and I want it to kind of follow the curve. If I get this out of my way, I want it to just kind of hit the corner here. That curve could probably be a little less ovally, and even that could be a little smaller. And I'm just gonna drop the exposure. Let's call it -7, lucky 7, somewhere around there. There we go, 7.75. So yeah, that just makes that corner, which is gonna like contrast nicely with this brighter corner once we start adding some color. And I like the light and dark of the image. Then you could kind of see where the light source is coming from. So this is where, again, I don't usually do this, but I'm going to do some global edits. So we're gonna do, let's start with our exposure, and let's actually go, believe it or not, we're gonna go up just a tiny bit, 0.15, more than enough. Contrast, 6 as I continue to pick random numbers. Highlights, -63 is a good starting point. Shadows, this is where we need those shadows to get some color and some definition into the foreground element, the boat, the rope, the grass, these beautiful grasses there. Whites will peel back a little bit from our last run, and then blacks, I'm actually going to leave the blacks. I think they're fine because instead, let's do some dehaze, which actually also adds overall to the scene up here. Obviously, I won't bore you with spot removing. I'll show what that looks like after I kind of go through. F22, every spot's going to show up, and I'm super OCD about keeping my sensor clean. I was actually pretty proud. This isn't that bad. So next, we're going to go to our vibrance, saturation. Usually start around 15. That's pretty good. I'm going to peel back on the saturation. I know I said sometimes I double it, but I'm going to start there. And same thing I've been doing, because if we grab this, we just have a little bit. If I hover the mouse, you watch that boat, we have a little bit of those blacks being crushed. See? So let's just do our usual 3 anchor points and just a touch up, and that should fix it. Yep, there we go. Next, we are going down to our color mixer. And for this, I'm gonna double down with the color mixer and the point color. And point color is the thing I've been using lately that's really been helping me achieve, again, that style and the true to life style that I want, where it's an artistic kind of vibe or look or feeling or idea that I'm trying to put out with my photography edits, but it's also, that true to life thing, and it's representative of the scene I saw. So for hue, let's just go greens up a little bit, almost to get a little bit of neon in there. And then for luminance, I want to get these up. I want these greens to not all the way up. I'm not going to crank them, but let's call 40 a good starting point. Yeah, I'll call that good. This is where it gets interesting. So this point color, I'm going to grab the dropper, and as I'm hovering over, you can see the little dot over here, and it's kind of telling you at what spectrum of the green, you're hitting. So what I'm going to try to do here is grab the farthest right point. It's all very similar, obviously. The color, the hue of the grass is all very similar, but I'm going to try to grab it when it's right. So let's call that good. Now we do an additional hue shift of 10. It's a good starting point. You don't want to do too much. Saturation, let's actually leave it where it's at, and let's do a luminance again, just to bring it up a touch more, because this is a specific kind of green we're going for, and this is the fun part. This is what's been, I think, making my photos pop and stand out a little bit more, is variance. This is a cool little tool that was introduced within the last year to Lightroom Classic, and I'm going to start with 25. Now, if I just crank it, you can see what happens. So what it's doing is it's grabbing, as I jack the slider, one way or the other, it's controlling neighboring colors, and it's taking them kind of away from the sampled color, for better or for worse, or for, whichever way stylistically you're going for. So it increases, if you go to the right, the color separation and the color contrast. I think point color was introduced a couple years ago, maybe 2023, but I'm loving variance. So again, I'm not going 82. Let's go here. And the reason I like variance is because I used to do this. I would do everything with the mixer, and I would do maybe a green. Maybe I'd use this to start to control the greens and do it that way, whether it was hue, saturation, luminance, and then I'd try to find a tiny point down here where it was the specific kind of orange. But now variance separates those, kind of just right there. It's perfect. The other thing I'm going to do, and I kind of touched on this before, is with sharpening. I know I really mostly don't do anything. I'm just going to double it, not doing a ton. So I am going to mask it. So I'm probably going to go around 50 or 60. I want it to get out of the sky there. So let's see, 50, yeah, about 60 is good. Boom. So now we got a little bit of sharpening, because again, at F22, I want to do that. And the last thing I want to do is I just want this boat to pop a tiny bit more. So let's do one more mask. Let's expand this out. Let's do a radial gradient, and I can make this a little bigger. I can make this a little bigger. Boat is on a tiny bit of an angle, like that. And then let's do ever so slightly 0.15 of exposure, and maybe some whites. Let's call it 20. And I'll go on and off here. It's not much, It's just a little pop. So if I come in here, you look at the boat, that's it. Not a whole lot, but I just wanted the boat to stand out, you know, a little bit better against the whole image. And then the other thing I could do to combat the texture that I added and the sharpening that I added is I could even come back to the storm clouds and say, hey, on my storm clouds, look, it's giving us that clarity, it's giving us that dehaze. I could do like a -50 of the sharpening on the storm clouds, but yeah, I'm calling that good. I mean, you know, I'm gonna go through and remove these and I'll show you what that looks like, but I'm loving that. I love the color. You know, you don't want to get too crazy because again, if you start jacking sliders up, it starts to look artificial. Yeah, that looks kind of cool, but it's just too much. I mean, could I dial this up a bit more? Sure. But I think I'm just going to keep it where it was. Keep it at 10. This looks great. I'm going with it. Let's look at it before and after. So there's the before and after, and I should go on record and say I really like the before too. This kind of like muted, stylistic, moody thing. I think that's great as well, but I love the after as well. So let's isolate that. I think that's looking great. So yeah, that's it. I hope that helped if you're a beginner, whether you're a beginner landscape photographer or any other kind of photographer, or if you're specifically a landscape photographer. Maybe you're not a beginner, but obviously, you know, if you're doing any sort of YouTubing or anything else to, you know, how to edit or how to do this, how to do that, you're going to see use masks, use selective editing, don't do global edits, but I think there is a little bit, just a little bit of a balance there. You know, don't jack the sliders up too much, and you can use global edits to like balance out the image. And the other thing I would say is, as you are trying to find your style, I mean, I'm speaking, you know, into a camera, but to myself, as you're trying to find a style, don't get too, you know, intoxicated with the kind of travel influencer, you know, like moody. If it starts to get too like just orange and, you know, matte blacks and whatnot, then in my opinion, it becomes unrepresentative. And the problem is when you jump on those bandwagons, when you do that style of editing, by the time you are doing that, you're just replicating somebody that kind of got big doing that, or maybe they didn't get big, but you're replicating them or their style. And by the time you're doing that, it's kind of already like played out, I think. So yeah, I mean, this is the way I do it. You know, I try to look at it, you know, in a way that how does it look on a screen and how does it look printed? And I think that one of the ways I've been really seeing a noticeable difference in terms of my photos finally representing what my eye sees and what I want the final product to look like. Because they say like you're a photographer when you take photos, but you're an artist, you know, in how you edit them or whatever. Another cliche. I don't buy into that totally, but yeah, is like that mixer, the mixer panel, which I've been using, but the point color and the variance is just another little nice tool. It's a little, you know, trick, a little technique that you can incorporate and see how you can start to get some good color separation and color contrast and just really make things pop in the right way. But yeah, there's beauty and subtlety. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Yeah, thanks for coming out. Thanks for coming. Peace. Later. Bye.